What is up, guys? Welcome in to yet another edition, a special Saturday edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Here with my guy from Diamondbacks on SI, Alex D'Agostino. I'll let him talk in just a minute. But before we get to that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, potentially even tell a friend about the Ben Garcia Show. Follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. You guys have really been showing the love and respect that these Saturday shows deserve. And so the Cardinals have been up to bat. The Suns have been yet up to bat. But listen, it is Diamondback season. The Suns are nothing but a heaping pile of garbage right now. So joining me from Diamondbacks on SI, Alex D'Agostino. Good morning, man. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Are you doing great? I'm okay. Because I'll be honest with you, this Diamondback season, I have been highly critical. I haven't been highly critical of the person that, everyone likes to blame, Torey, who we'll get into in just a second. But let's start here. The Diamondbacks, I should have looked at it at this point, but last night after the win against the Rockies, which was clearly a game that I watched the first 6 innings, and I was like, okay, if they lose this game, I'm going to put myself through a window, so I'm not going to finish the rest of it. 24-21 through the season. Better, worse, or exactly where you thought this team was going to be? Give it a grade. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I think at this stage, you'd probably look at, 3 games over 500 as a little bit of a disappointment as compared to the preseason hype, looking at the guys that, they brought in as far as, Corbin Burns, who obviously was a big part of the reason why they won last night. So, I wouldn't say that being 3 games over 500 is something to be extremely disappointed about. It's certainly a good record in a very competitive division. I think people would like to have a few of those games that they gave away back, and that's understandable. So, I'd probably give them like a solid, I give them like a B to maybe a B minus if we're really going to be critical, because there's been some growing pains with this team so far. But they're trending in the right direction. They have 2 more games against the Colorado Rockies. So,
yeah, that seems like something where you never walk into a series and you're like, you need to sweep this team. The Rockies are historically awful, and you're playing at home, and you're throwing Gallen, Kelly, and Burns at them this week. It should be Kelly, right? It's not Brandon Pfaadt tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
Miro Kelly.
Kelly.
There we go. Yeah, so Miro Kelly tomorrow. So you're throwing, I would say, 2 of your top 3 pitchers at them this weekend. Hopefully Zach Gallen gets it figured out tonight. I'm all about blame. I'm not really about credit, because everyone knows who's been playing well. Corbin Burns over his last few starts has been awesome. He's got a 16 inning, if I'm not mistaken, scoreless streak. Corbin Carroll has been awesome. There's been those guys that we know. We don't need to pat them on the back. They're going to be just fine. Let's talk Torey for a second. I have been someone who has been a defender of Torey Lovullo, because here's my theory. I think this team is way more Mike Hazen ran than people are willing to give it credit for. I think, sure, does Torey have some say in the lineup card? Maybe all the say in the lineup card. Sure. But I don't ever think of Torey as a schematics manager. Sure, he's following the computer to a T, lefty on lefty, musical chairs of who the closer is going to be that night. I have no issues with any of that, except when it comes to the playoffs. I would like something nailed down. But how much of the season do you blame on Torey? I think the players really love him. He's a connector. Relationships matter in this sport. Confidence matters in this sport. Yes. Has there been some things where I'm like, what the hell are you doing? But there's been other things like, well, what was he else going to do in the bullpen? The bullpen has been awful. I didn't like when it was early on in the season where he had Geraldo Perdomo bunt when guys were on second and third. I can't remember. I think that was the Cubs series. The one that was the second one at home.
That was the Mets.
And it was the Mets series. Mets series.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a guy on second, and I believe he was a guy on first and second. And he bunts his RBI leader. Like, things like that do drive me crazy. But how much of the season is on Torey, if any at all? Which I'd be okay with you being like, nah, it's not much.
Well, okay, here's the thing, and what people don't see is that he does take accountability for the mistakes or for the decisions that don't pan out. And we are in that room and we ask him about it on a daily basis. So that's, he's not just sitting there pushing buttons randomly. A lot of it is determined by the coaching staff around him. A lot of it is determined roster-wise by Mike Hazen. I'd say it's fair to, criticize a move here or there. I probably wasn't a fan of the bunt decision either, but he had a reason. And I think that's one of the things to keep in mind with managers across baseball. It's not just Torey. They don't just go out there and do whatever. They have a plan. When they have a decision in game, there's a reason for that. And it might not be a great reason, and it might not be a reason that's satisfactory to the fans when it doesn't pan out. But you look at that bunt situation in particular, if that did pan out, it would have been a great move, because the very next at bat, Pavin Smith hit into a ground ball double play. So if Perdomo gets the bunt down and moves the runners over, that's a run after Pavin hits that next ball. So one of the things to keep in mind as well is, at the end of the day, it's about execution, and it's about the players doing their job. Kevin Ginkel needed to get the Dodgers out. Is it Torey's fault that Kevin Ginkel couldn't get anyone out? No. I used this analogy before. You're working, a day job, whatever. Your boss schedules you for a certain time. You show up a half hour late consistently and, are not doing your job properly. Are you going to blame the manager for scheduling you too early? Or are you going to blame the employee for not getting themselves out of bed and getting to work on time? I mean, that's what it comes down to. The players have to execute. So I'd say there are some instances where Torey has pulled the wrong strings and pushed the wrong buttons and done things maybe I wouldn't have done personally. But you can't put the success of the team as a whole on those little in-game decisions. And he doesn't have complete control over the stuff like giving guys off days. Our publisher, Jack Summers, had a couple of articles about, number one, the medical team and return to play protocol and what that looks like. And number two, whether or not the D-backs actually give their stars more off days than other teams. And I'll just spoil it, they don't. And as far as the medical stuff goes, Torey follows what the medical team tells him. So that means they told him Ketel Marte cannot play all 3 games of like the first couple of series when he's back. You have to give him an off day during these series. And he did. And so if he didn't do that, that would be grounds for firing, because that's not following the people who are in charge of those decisions to a T.
Well, it also just feels like you're not asking the right questions. I think your stuff is great, but to see the people go after you or Jesse Friedman or whoever it is, I think Aaron Hughes as well covers it, like all those guys. And it's like, oh, you guys aren't asking the right questions. No, I think the team has just been bad. And so like when we talk about Torey, I do think maybe more than you do that some of the season is on him, but I'm not firing the guy. I don't like. I look back to when everything was rolling correctly, and it was not a good team. That World Series year, when every time you got into the 6, 7, 8, 9 order in your lineup, you're like, oh God, okay. I hope Perdomo is going to get on base by walking so Corbin can drive him in. Like Torey pulled all the right levers and gets no credit for it. He started Joe Mantiply in Game 4 of an NLCS. Like, I understand a lot of that is Hazen as well, putting in the computer blueprint idea of what they're going to do. But there have been some things where I'm like, maybe a little bit more than normal because there's expectations for this team this year, where I do think it has been a little disappointing. Maybe I am being too much. It's early in the season. But I do, like, just you look back at games where, like, they score 10 runs against the Cubs and they lose that game. Or same with the Dodgers the other day. But again, like throwing out Joe Mantiply against the Cubs, even though you were up 11-8 or something like that, I get it. Like, you should have won that game. That is Joe Mantiply's fault. But like, he hadn't had it all year. I don't blame the Ginkel one on him, because Ginkel was rock solid for that World Series run. It was him, Thompson, and Sewald. And then Sewald forgot how to pitch. And now it kind of seems like Ginkel's kind of falling down that route too. I don't blame the bullpen issues for this team, but let's move over to the bullpen really quickly. Is that going to get better? Because I don't fear the Dodgers. I really don't. I don't fear anyone in the NL, because I think if you stack up this team, playoffs are just different than the regular season. If I go up and throw out Burns, Gowan, which Burns has had some troubles in the playoffs before. We've known that firsthand playing them in the wild card. But Burns, Gowan, Fott, Kelly, or in whatever order you want to do that, in an NLDS series or whatever. And I'm throwing out a bullpen of Shelby Miller's looked good. I believed in Ginkel. I believed in Thompson. I believe in Justin Martinez. I forgot the other guy's name. Just came off the Graveman. I believed in him as well. Like, I believe in all these guys, but a lot of so much about baseball is mental. So I'm not out on this bullpen yet, but how much concern has it been for you so far that the pitching was supposed to be the anchor for this team? And the starting pitching has definitely gotten better over the last couple of rotational switches, which probably over the last two. But the bullpen, man, when they bring those guys up outside of like Beeks, it has been a little concerning. How much of that do you think is going to continue throughout this season?
Yeah, it hasn't looked good. It's not super encouraging, when you're a bottom 10 bullpen ERA in all of MLB. I'd say, a lot of it's going to depend on whether or not Justin Martinez comes back to full strength, and how quickly that happens. And one of the things I'll say is that Justin Martinez needs to be named the closer once he is fully back. I understand the AJ Puck thing. I understand going, matchup based, and that can work. I'm not saying that can't work. But remember 2023, when did the bullpen actually get itself together and become a strength? Well, it did that once everyone in that bullpen knew that Paul Sewald was going to pitch the ninth inning. And maybe he wasn't going to get the save every single time, but it was going to be most of the time, 80+% of the time. And I think the bullpen can form into, at the very least, reliable, at best, one of the team's strengths if Martinez takes over that ninth inning completely and isn't dealing with whatever he's dealing with right now. That's still a bit odd. But there's more depth once you have Martinez, and then you have Puck to take on the eighth inning. You can move Ginkel and Miller and Beeks down an inning. That's what happened in 2023 with Thompson. You don't want Ryan Thompson closing games, but he was amazing in the seventh inning, getting it to Ginkel, getting it to Sewald. And so when that happens, I think it can become a strength. But at the end of the day, they're also just not executing right now. And at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter if you're in the ninth inning or the eighth inning. You have to be able to execute, and they haven't so much. Shelby Miller's, he's had a couple of, I'll give him credit for gritting out that save against the Giants. 36 pitches, walked in a run, had the tying run at third, winning run at second, but he got it done. But I think that's just one of those things that will hold this team back when they're pushing for the playoffs if it doesn't start to get figured out.
Shelby Miller has been a revolution for this team. I understand he's not a closer. At times, he's the team's best closer, like right now, where they don't have anyone out there. You mentioned Justin Martinez and AJ Puck. Because of how dominant AJ Puck was, because let's just talk, when the season was going downhill last year, when it started to figure itself out towards the very, very, very end is when, to your point, they named AJ Puck the closer of this team. And they did start to figure it out towards the end until, they had realized they blew it up too much before to really get back in there. And they really not really. And they only missed out on the playoffs on tiebreakers, which is not a great thing either. I'm skeptical about Justin Martinez being the closer right now. I trust your opinion over mine, because as much as I'm immersed in this team, you're down in the depths with this team every single day, which for better or for worse at times. But I just worry about Martinez. When he has it, it's over. It's over. But it does still feel like he's a little inconsistent, just a little, and a little young to ask him to just take the reins. Maybe after the All-Star break, I might feel differently. But it also feels like he doesn't necessarily find a way to pace himself. That's where you get the shoulder fatigue, which is also not a Torey thing, but using him too much can be an issue as well. When AJ Puck and Justin Martinez come back, how confident are you that both of those guys will go back to being what they were, AJ Puck last year and then Justin Martinez early on in the season? Some of that does worry me a bit. This AJ Puck phantom injury, I thought for sure he was getting Tommy John, man.
Yeah, we all did. He was, consulting with some of those doctors that you recognize their name and you're like, oh, that's not good.
That's terrible.
I don't think we're probably going to see the same version of AJ Puck that we saw at the end of last year, which was, literally did not give up an earned run for I don't remember, 15 appearances or something like that. I'm not sure we're really going to see that again, but he is very, very good. And I think part of the reason why he didn't maybe look so good this year is because he was dealing with something and he was being a little bit overused. Torey admitted he messed that one up, by the way. He was like, he said that he had a puck get hot a couple of times and not get into the game, which can do damage on a pitcher. And puck came to him and said, hey, if you're going to get me warm, like, I want to get in the game. He was like, oh, like, yeah, like I need to be better about that. And so he, maybe thought that might have contributed to it. So the other thing is, I think with Martinez, you're right that he's very young and he's not necessarily consistent with everything. And that was the big question about him coming into this year, was more so the mental side of it than the stuff. Because obviously the stuff is fantastic. Obviously he's done wonders to dial it in. I mean, you remember when he came up in 2023 and he had like a 12 ERA because he had no idea where the ball was going. But I think if he comes back to what he was looking like even at the beginning of this year, he's got a good chance to lock down, 75, 80% of saves. And maybe that's not amazing, and maybe they do decide to move off that. It doesn't mean you have to have him locked in there for the entire rest of the year. But I think there needs to be some level of stability there. So knowing that puck can kind of take over in an emergency is fine. But I think in order to get him the mental reps, he needs to be seeing that ninth inning role more often. And you can argue maybe now is not the time when every game matters, but then what? Like pitching him in the 7th and 8th inning over and over again to get him ready for the 9th. That's not really how that works. He needs that 9th inning experience. He needs to learn how to handle that adversity. And I think he can, but he's still only 23. I think he's 23 years old. So that'll come. I think that'll come. It just might be a process.
So much to get to. There's like a bunch of different things I wanted to get to, but I'm scheduling it down to what I like the best. Let's stick to pitching really quickly, and then I want to get to Corbin Carroll. Corbin Burns over his last 4 starts is 24 innings pitched, 26 strikeouts, 0.74 ERA. Like I never bought in for a second that he was like, oh, this guy just forgot how to pitch, or like he just hates baseball now. I actually thought he'd be super comfortable here because Arizona guy, wants to raise his kids here, took less money to be here. I was never concerned about him. But there is this weird thing about baseball that you're very aware of, that when star players just go to different teams, sometimes it just takes like a long time to figure it out. And by a long time, I mean like half a season. Goldschmidt's first season with the Cardinals, he was really bad for the first half, and then he was awesome for the second half. I thought we were going to see something similar to that to Burns. That doesn't appear true at all. It looks like the shoulder was just bothering him. He got a cortisone shot. And last night, if he topped out at 100, I missed it. But I know he topped out at 99 a few times last night. What the hell was it with Corbin Burns? Was it literally just the shoulder was messed up? Or was there some sort of cognitive mental issue that even you were like, okay, he'll figure it out, but it's going to take a little bit of time? Or is this guy just the dominant ace that we thought he was going to be?
Yeah, it all comes down for Burns. It all comes down to that cutter, obviously. He lives and dies by that pitch. And I think part of the major concern was that last year he had similar issues with the cutter where he kind of just lost the feel for it a little bit. He wasn't locating it. He wasn't getting as much bite on it. And it wasn't the dominant strikeout pitch that it used to be, and he was getting hit kind of hard. But then he figured it out. He figured it out pretty late last year, so I would hope that's not the timeline that we're in this year. I would say it was definitely a concern. Like, I wasn't sitting there going, he'll be fine. I was sitting there going, something's up. But I think maybe more of it was related to that shoulder than we thought, because, he's a tough guy, and Torey said this, everyone, he didn't want to skip a start. He hadn't skipped a start since 2020. So yeah, he wasn't going to come out there and complain about every little thing, but he's also very routine driven. And, maybe he got ramped up a little bit late in spring training. He said, because that's what he told us. He said, basically, that's an issue that he's dealt with before, but it was usually something he dealt with in spring training before the season. But it just came up sort of in the early portion of the season. I don't know how many starts he was dealing with it. He said he was dealing with it like, a couple of starts before they announced that he would be skipping a spot in the rotation. It might have been long before that. But whatever it is right now, you're seeing that cutter looking a lot better. You're seeing him go, 7, 6 innings with, all these strikeouts. Now, yes, he's still walking guys. I'd still say I have a little bit of concern there because he doesn't look 100%, but he looks close to that. And close to 100% is still a very, very good starting pitcher in the form of Corbin Burns.
I gotta ask you, where were you at? Because it's insane, right? That Corbin Burns signed here. I didn't even know he was. Like, I'm a big Diamondbacks guy. Didn't even know the Diamondbacks were in the running. It was like 11:50, and it was late at night for me. I go to bed at like 9:30 because I'm a child. But I'm playing video games 2 inches over here, and my buddy, who's a huge Yankees fan, was just trying to mess with me, I thought. So we're playing a game, and he goes, Corbin Burns signed with the Diamondbacks. He's a huge baseball guy. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you signed with the Diamondbacks. Oh, okay, come on, dude. Let's go to the next thing. He's, dude, seriously. And I'm like, okay, this joke is going to be stupid. You're just going to get me to go to my phone, and I'm going to see Jeff Passan signed with the Dodgers or like something stupid. Yeah. And then I saw it, immediately got off the game, and I was like, what the hell just happened? I would love to know the story of when you saw Corbin Burns was coming to the Diamondbacks. What was that like for you? Because obviously this is a 5-month-old story, but this is just for me at this point. Where were you at when you saw that? And was there any inclination to you that this guy was going to sign here?
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. Cause I mean, I was up too, cause I don't even know what I was doing, but I just checked my phone, and the first tweet I see is from, I think it was like John Heyman. And it was just like Corbin Burns to Diamondbacks, 6-year deal or something. I was like, what? And I obviously I texted Jack Summers, our publisher, and I was like, Corbin Burns just signed with the Diamondbacks. And we were both blown away. Like, that was not on anyone's radar. And like, they were never really in the running for it. I don't think Mike Hazen and Ken Kendrick thought they were in the running for Burns. He essentially came to them and said, I want to pitch here, and you're not going to turn that down when that comes knocking. Hazen wasn't even in the country. I think he was on vacation in, like, I don't remember where he was. He was on vacation with his sons when that happened.
Such a wild story how that came to be. I didn't know any of that, where it was like, they didn't even think they were in the running. They gave him like $10 million less a year, if I'm not mistaken, or something crazy to get him to sign here, which is just a great sign when you're not doing something solely for money. I think it's always a good reason to be here, but just curious. That's something where I'm like, what was everyone else doing? Because I woke my wife up out of bed. That's how hyped up I was. She wasn't as hyped because she's a Diamondbacks girl, but not necessarily to the point where she wants to be waking up at midnight where she thought I was playing video games, playing with myself. Let's move over to Corbin Carroll really quickly, man. We know how awesome Corbin is. Like, we can talk about his new swing, and sure, let's harp on that a little bit. What the real difference is between last year and this year? How much of it was his shoulder bothering him last year, or just a different mechanics? But what I really want to know with Corbin, with you, I don't know if the Diamondbacks have ever been in this position. Maybe Randy Johnson 2 decades ago. How many other, if you were a GM of a team, and pitchers not included, because Paul Skeens would be one, how many other people would you point to and say, I want to start my team with that guy? Where is Corbin on that list?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say he's probably in the top 10, easily, maybe top 5.
Contract included is what I mean in that too. Like, you have this guy locked up for 7 years at this point. $100 million. Like, another just ridiculous steal, but I get it. Players chose security over, who knows, maybe they suck, but I'm just curious. I mean, he's in the top 3, right? Like, I don't know if there's many other guys. Wander Franco used to be there until he was crazy person.
Yeah.
How many other players are there on that list?
Factoring in age, there's not a lot of players at that age that are already a star. You can point to the Shohei Ohtanis of the world. You can, point to, he's 32 and, has had Tommy John twice. Ellie De La Cruz is one for sure. I definitely am not as much on the hype train with him as other people are, but he's got a lot of raw tools. Corbin's at the top, and he's getting some love too. He's getting some love. I'm seeing a lot of segments by, MLB Network and stuff talking about him. I think, maybe Juan Soto might be up there, but he even hasn't looked that incredible this year
He's
yet.
$700 million.
Yeah, for $700 million, I don't know. I don't know if that's worth it in the long term, but maybe. Yeah, with contract and age included, he's one of the best foundational pieces in all of baseball right now. And I think going through what he did last year and then coming out this year and doing what he's doing is a really good sign for who he is as both a person and as a long-term player. Because I don't think it was the shoulder that was really messing him up last year. I think pitchers found a hole in his swing and they exploited it. And what did he do? He found a way to fix that hole. And I mean, look at his throwing arm. Like, that used to be one of the ball dropped in front of Corbin. Yeah, ball dropped in front of Corbin. You're like, I hope Salvador Perez doesn't score from first base on this throw. You know what I mean? Like, and now it's like you don't run on Corbin, and it's because what did he do? He got in the lab and he figured it out, and he's, the arm strength is maybe not necessarily amazing, but he's more accurate, he's more on time, and he's getting a little bit more behind those throws, and it's become a strength. So when you have a guy that can turn his weaknesses into, at the very worst, serviceable aspects of his game, that is a player you absolutely want on your team for the long term.
Exactly, man. That's the way I think about it. Like, I don't think it's a strength anymore, but you can't exploit him in the outfield, that being the case, because I went to just a ton of way too many Diamondback games over the last couple of years, and I've only been to one this year. But one thing about Corbin is I would always point out to my wife, and I'd go, watch this throw. I go, this guy. I go, I don't know. He plays right field. It's not that big of a concern. I was like, he's awesome at everything else. I was like, watch this. He's gonna skip this throw to his cutoff man. That's how this dude's got a noodle arm. And she'd always laugh as well. And that's something is like when he's throwing out guys at home now, I'm like, I don't know how you fix that. Again, that's not the baseball mechanics that I'm into, but it's just wild, man. The Diamondbacks have never had someone, if I'm not mistaken, per my research, win an MVP. Is he going to be the guy that breaks that trend? Maybe it's not this year because it's just nonsense with the media sometimes. I mean, Shohei Ohtani won it being just a DH last year, and I was like, okay. Ketel Marte, yes, the injury took him out of it towards the end of the season, but I was like, Ketel Marte is a Gold Glove level defender, and maybe 80% of what Shohei Ohtani is as a player. But of course, it's a narrative award at times, and that's fine. But is he going to be the guy that breaks that streak, whether this year or in the future? If I had to put the over under on 1.5 MVPs, is it multiple or is it just probably one?
It's going to be hard with Shohei Ohtani in the division because that's just all of the attention is going to go. And now, Soto is now in the NL, and you've got Tatis is doing really well, and you got all these amazing players in the National League. I think for the record, I think Francisco Lindor was when you break it down, was the most valuable player to his team last year, and probably should have won it, but I understand. I think Corbin is definitely the best chance the Diamondbacks have of getting an MVP. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think he placed somewhere in the voting his rookie year. And obviously he won Rookie of the Year. And it was Ronald Acuna Jr. who won.
Yeah.
2023. But Corbin got votes. And he looks even better now than he did then. And so it depends on how the rest of the season goes. You can't account for maybe a couple of slumps here or there. We keep waiting for that. I keep waiting for that slump to happen.
I thought we were going to have it. I thought we were going to have it 2 weeks ago, and then he just decided he's just going to hit a bunch of home runs,
right,
and just hit for power. So I thought the same thing, and that was one of the things I was going to talk to you about. I was like, okay, the slump's here, and then it never came.
Yeah, I think because he has so many things in his toolkit. I don't know if we're going to see him slide to that the way he did last year. I think there was a problem with his swing. He wasn't getting the coverage, the amount of plate coverage he needed. And once he was able to figure that out, there's not a lot of weaknesses in his game. And he's getting faster at, I think, recognizing and closing up those gaps in his game when they show up. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'd put my money on multiple MVPs, but I think of all the guys on the Diamondbacks, this is your best bet, and he should be in that conversation this year firmly.
I I got two more things that I want to talk about. I'm going to save Lawler for last because he's been literally non-existent. Now, I don't think a lot of that is his fault. And I want to get to him in just a second. I want to just touch on Brandon Pfaadt really quickly. Again, he's been awesome. So I'm not going to just go, how awesome is Brandon Pfaadt? If the playoffs started today, who's starting? Like, is it Burns? Probably. But you have to put in the back of your mind that Burns has had playoff issues before. Again, we saw that with the Diamondbacks a couple years ago, and the Diamondbacks knocked him out after, I think 5 innings. But he was really good last year with the O's in his first game. Fine, he's 1. Pfaadt's 2, right? Like Brandon Pfaadt, if the playoffs started today, you're starting Brandon Pfaadt and just giving Zach Gallen the middle finger and telling him he's going 3rd.
That's one of those things that's tough to predict because, for example, it kind of felt obvious that Burns should have been the opening day starter, but Torey went with Gallen because of longevity and everything he's done for the team. I don't want to downplay that either.
That was totally fair. It was totally fair.
Gallen hasn't looked like he did in maybe the 2022 early 2023 season, and that's a shame. But I do think there's some merit still to that. Now, if he keeps getting blown up or he keeps getting knocked around and he looks really poor the rest of this season, then yeah, maybe he does maybe he does start after Pfaadt. But I still think we're probably looking at Burns, Burns, Pfaadt, Kelly, and then Burns, Gallen, Kelly, Pfaadt for a playoff rotation as of right now.
That's fair. I don't think that's crazy. I would probably move Pfaadt ahead of Kelly at this point, but man, Kelly's so tough as nails. Kelly going on the road to Philly in 2022, whenever that World Series year was, in Game 6, and was fighting Torey to stay on the field after he just struck out. I think it was Harper and Trey Turner or something of that nature. I was like, damn, that guy's tough as nails. He doesn't really have anything to blow you away. He just is control and he can paint corners. So I just wanted to touch on that really quickly because Brandon Pfaadt has been awesome, but now it looks like, okay, you're going to be number 2, just, in my head, and Burns is just going to continue to be awesome. And just to again, the Torey thing of putting Gallen as the 1 on, that was totally fine. It was 1 game. He got knocked around, whatever. But the next 3 years are going to be Corbin Burns starting the world. It's fine. You have to earn that at least a little bit. It's not just talent. Besides, you gave Zach Greinke it a couple years ago when he got knocked around in his first start against the Rockies when he started opening day years ago. This is my last thing. Jordan Lawlar. I wanted to actually talk 50 minutes on Jordan Lawlar earlier, and then he was just non-existent. This isn't his first stint in the majors, which is why I was so surprised that he was still ranked as high as he was as a prospect, not in the Diamondbacks organization, just as a whole. He was a 4 prospect. The Diamondbacks need a guy that can get the ball out of they need power, and they need someone that's going to take over Suarez next year. I'm not sure I have all the belief in Lawler that he's just going to be I knew Carroll was going to be great. I actually thought Alec Thomas was going to be great. And now Thomas has figured out his role a little bit more. Where does Lawler fit in all this? Is he the third base? You're not giving him shortstop. That's Geraldo Perdomo's. Is he third? Is he in the future? Marte's going to go to DH and he's the second. He's kind of a tweener here. Where do you put this guy? And how much confidence do you have in him that he's just going to be a 30 home run guy? Maybe he bats 240, 245, 250, but he hits 35 home runs a year. What is this guy? What is this archetype that he's going to be in this Diamondbacks lineup for the next 4 years, or maybe not?
That's actually a really good question because we haven't really been able to see exactly what that will look like for him. We've seen him put up a lot of numbers in Reno, which is an extremely hitter-friendly environment. So one of the things that Jack always likes to remind people of is that the team does not weight results with the Reno Aces as heavily as the fans do. So if Lawler's hitting 350 and slugging 600 in Reno, you're probably going to want to water those numbers down a little bit. Now, I still think he's going to be a very good player, but I don't know if he's a power hitter. I don't know if he's a on-base guy. He's fast, obviously. He plays great defense. He has not played great defense in his limited starts out there this year, but
he dropped a shoulder. He dropped a shoulder into someone.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm a Diamondback fan. I'm like, oh, that's clean. It's clearly obstruction.
Yeah, it was obviously obstruction.
And watching Torey throw out the managers was great.
That was awesome.
But sorry, I'll let you continue with Lawler.
No, but yeah, and I think that's the hard part too. And the hard part about getting him called up was, where is he going to play? How is he going to get regular at bats? And all that was kind of one of the things that I was kind of saying and Jack was kind of saying, and it was, the fans didn't want to hear it. And I understand, I get it. I don't fault them for that. But they were like, it doesn't matter, like bring him up anyway and play him. And it's, well, you can't do that with a guy and just have him sit there. And if he's not looking super hot right away, then yeah, you have to kind of go with the guys. I mean, Suarez is, he's got like a 900 OPS, maybe it's 850 or something. Gurriel's gotten hot. Obviously Ketel is back. I don't know long-term where Lawler fits in. He's probably going to be a little bit more fluid. Maybe he takes over from Gino at third. I think it's less likely the Diamondbacks take Ketel Marte off of second base because he hasn't really gotten hurt playing second. He's gotten hurt rounding the bases or swinging too hard. So
yeah, but the argument there is the wear and tear, though, that you take from second base and then you go obviously the offensive side of the plate and you're swinging too hard. And like the people think that kind of stuff and I can buy that argument, but I'm kind of with you, man. I don't really want to move Ketel. So
he's playing great defense. I don't want him not.
It's not like he's an average defender either.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're just moving on from Gino. I mean, he bats like 205, but he's going to hit like 40 home runs. Yeah. So who cares? But I don't know where he fits. It's not like Tawa, who's a utility guy. You could stick him anywhere. I mean, at this point, I think they're just going to play him at catcher if Jose Herrera goes back into a slump. But it's
our show replacement.
Yeah, exactly. It's just an interesting idea, and I'm just not sure where he fits into that. So that would be my concern.
It's going to take some time, and I think it's fair to give him a runway. It's fair to kind of just ride the process, and just because what's funny to me is the same crowd was like, you got to call Lawler up right now. You have to call him up right now. And then they call him up. Why isn't he playing the second he gets called up? Well, what do you mean? Then he doesn't hit well and he doesn't play. And it's like, that's the same logic applied to everybody else, that it's like, well, if Gino is slumping, you want him pulled out of the lineup immediately, right? But that's not the case with Lawler. It's just one of those situations where give him some time to develop and he will be okay. But he's not the at-bats are not there for him to play every day unless he just turns into some sort of monster at the plate in the next week.
Yeah, you're dealing with what I dealt with during the Phoenix Suns season.
Oof. Brutal.
I'm so happy I have this outlet too, where I can just talk Cardinals and Diamondbacks. And at some point I'll have to have you on to talk Cardinals too, because you also do some Cardinals coverage.
Yes, sir.
But it's just like, fans are just that. They're just fans. And like, it's just stupid at times. And like, I'm cool with it. You act, but it's going after media members. Like Gerald Bourguet of PHNX Suns, we would always joke with him because they'd be like, they do the same thing you do, where it's just like, you're not asking the right questions. And so it's funny at the end of the season where Gerald tweeted, had only I had asked the right questions, this season would have went differently. Like, it's just so dumb, man. You can't let him. I mean, listen, Alex, we all know Torey can fire you, and you're too scared to ask him a hard question.
That's it.
So there's that, man. Anyways, brother, I really appreciate you joining me today. I'll try to keep it somewhat few and far in between, but you just have all this good nuggets of information, kind of covered the season as a whole so far. Appreciate you coming on, man. Alex D'Agostino, Cardinals. Alex D'Agostino, Diamondbacks on SI. The reason why I tripped over that is because I had no problem with that before, and then Alex grilled me. He's like, if you ever want me to come back on, you better get the name of everything correct. Diamondbacks on SI, Alex D'Agostino. It's been the Ben Garcia Show. Follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Alex, I'll talk to you soon, man. Have a good one, and I appreciate you coming on.
For sure. Thanks for having me on.